You are 19 years old, stacking crates in your uncle's grocery store in Fresno, California, when the notice arrives. It is March 1968. The Tet Offensive has been on the news for weeks. Grainy footage of a war that always felt far away, suddenly filling the living room every night at 6. Your father works construction, your mother teaches 3rd grade. You have ordinary plans. Finish community college, marry your girlfriend Carol once you both have enough saved. Nothing heroic, nothing complicated. Then the letter comes. Greetings. It begins. It always begins that way. You have been selected. Your father doesn't say much. He watches you read it twice, like he's trying to memorize your face before it changes. Your mother cries in the kitchen, where she thinks you can't hear her. Carol doesn't cry, not at first. She sits with you on the porch steps and holds your hand so tightly you can feel her ring press into your fingers. You have 8 weeks before you report. On the morning you leave for Fort Ord, Carol gives you a cassette tape, just her voice, reading you the news from home before it happens, so you'll have something real instead of just letters. On the label she's written 4 words, "Come back before autumn." You laugh, because you both know autumn might come around more than once. Basic training reshapes you the way it reshapes everyone. They cut your hair, take your name, give you a number, and teach you obedience before you have time to object. You learn to field strip an M16 with your eyes closed. You crawl under live fire while drill sergeants scream that the rounds are real because fear is supposed to make the lesson permanent. At night, men talk about home with the desperation of people describing a meal they haven't eaten in years. That's where you meet Danny Kowalski, from a coal town outside Pittsburgh. He worked in his father's diner, and he can make army chow sound worse just by describing what he should be eating instead. Pierogi his grandmother makes on Sundays, kielbasa on the grill, real coffee. He carries his older brother Zippo, the brother who didn't come back from a training accident before he ever shipped out. Danny doesn't smoke, he just flips the lighter open and shut when he's nervous, running his thumb over the dent in the case. There's also Staff Sergeant Alvarez, 28 years old, but carrying the face of a man twice that, already on his 2nd tour. He doesn't raise his voice. He tells you the men who talk the most about killing usually freeze first. He tells you to watch the quiet ones. Then he nods at Danny and says, "That one talks enough for 3 men, but he'll hold up fine." Danny grins. You believe Alvarez because he talks like someone who has already seen how this particular story ends. The flight to Vietnam takes 18 hours, refueling once in Alaska, once in Guam. Somewhere over the Pacific, the plane goes quiet. Everyone thinking the same thing, nobody saying it out loud. You land at Bien Hoa in heat that hits you like a wall, air thick with jet fuel and wet earth, and something underneath that you'll later learn is decomposition. A soldier walks past your formation, clearly a short timer counting down his last days. He looks at your new uniform and says, "It don't mean nothing." Then he keeps walking. You don't understand yet. You will. You're assigned to a platoon operating out of a firebase in the Central Highlands, humping the bush on search and destroy patrols through jungle so dense that daylight barely reaches the ground. The map back at base makes the terrain look manageable. Grid squares, contour lines, LZs marked in grease pencil. On the ground, every problem is a wall of green that could be hiding anything. Danny leans over during a briefing and whispers, "Funny how the map never mentions the leeches." You almost laugh. Alvarez doesn't. Your first firefight happens 19 days in, on a trail near a village the maps call something you can't pronounce. The point man trips a wire. The explosion throws men sideways before the shooting even starts. Then the shooting starts, coming from tree lines you can't see into, muzzle flashes swallowed by foliage. You fire in the direction everyone else is firing. Your hands don't shake until afterward, kneeling in the mud when the adrenaline drains out all at once and leaves you hollow. 2 men are dead. 1 is a replacement who arrived 4 days earlier. You never learned his last name. Danny sits beside the poncho liner covering him and doesn't say anything about food for the rest of the day. That's the first thing the jungle teaches you. There is no line here, no beach to cross, no hill to take that ends it. The war is everywhere, and it is also nowhere. And the enemy you're hunting is sometimes the farmer who waved at you that morning, and sometimes isn't. You rarely find out which, until it's too late to matter. The months blur into a rhythm. Patrol, ambush, resupply, monsoon, patrol again. You learn to read the jungle the way you once read a street map, which silences mean nothing and which mean everything. The difference between a mortar tube coughing in the distance and one that's found your position. You write to Carol and remove every true sentence. The weather's hot, the guys are good guys, I'm counting the days. You don't tell her about the booby-trapped trail or the village that turned out empty except for an old woman who wouldn't stop screaming, or the fact that you started sleeping with your boots on because contact can start at any hour. Alvarez keeps you alive more than once, not through anything dramatic. Just by knowing which paths to avoid, which villages to trust a little, and which to trust not at all, when to push and when to wait. Before a night patrol into contested territory, he takes off a small brass compass he's carried since his first tour and presses it into Danny's hand. "You keep pointing the right direction," he says. "I keep my rank." It becomes a joke between them. Danny, holding the compass, always announcing which way was north, whether anyone asked or not. 3 weeks later, on a ridge, during a firefight that lasts most of an afternoon, a mortar round lands close enough that the world goes white and silent. You come back to yourself, lying in the mud, ears ringing, dirt in your mouth. Alvarez is nearby, hit badly. Danny is already crawling toward him, under fire that hasn't stopped. You go too. Alvarez is still conscious when you reach him, still trying to give orders through the pain, the compass in his fist. He pushes it toward Danny. Wrong direction this time, he manages, almost like a joke. Danny takes it with both hands and tells him the medevac is coming. Alvarez looks at him with the tired patience of a man listening to a child lie badly. Then he tells you both to get back to cover. You don't want to abandon him. But he tells you again. He screams harder. So you end up leaving him there. For the rest of your life, you will remember exactly how Danny's arm felt, resisting your grip as you pulled him back. Not the blood, not the noise, just that resistance, and how the war overrode it in under 10 seconds. Alvarez dies before the dust-off bird gets him out. The war doesn't pause for grief. 2 months later, outside of Hamlet during a search operation, Danny is walking point when the platoon starts taking sniper fire from somewhere in the tree line. He goes down before anyone can find the shooter. You reach him fast, not fast enough. The wound is low, and he already knows. The way men in this war learn to know these things almost instantly. He asks you to describe Carol. You tell him about her voice on the cassette tape, the way she laughs before she finishes a joke, the ring you're saving for. He asks you to promise you'll go back and actually give it to her, not just carry it around like a good luck charm. You promise. He smiles because he can tell you'd say anything right now, and he doesn't mind. His hand finds the Zippo in his pocket and pushes it toward you. Don't let him disappear, he says. You never fully know if he means his brother, or Alvarez, or himself. Then he's gone. From that day, you carry two things, Carol's cassette tape and Danny's brother's lighter, the dent worn smoother now under your own thumb. Your tour ends in early 1969, 13 months after it started. You fly home the way most men did then, alone in uniform, landing at an airport where a stranger calls you a word you won't repeat to your children 30 years later when they finally ask what it was like. Nobody throws a parade. Nobody expects one anymore. The news has already turned the war into something people argue about, not something people welcome you home from. Carol is at the gate. She looks almost exactly like she did in your memory and completely different. You hold her and feel relief, and love and grief all at once, but it comes through glass like you're watching yourself do it from a few feet away. At home, your mother has kept your room exactly as you left it. Your father shakes her hand and doesn't ask questions because he can see in your face that you don't want them asked yet. You try to perform the person who left. You tell safe stories. The heat, the friends you made, nothing about the trail, the ridge, the ditch, the Hamlet. Carol asks about the lighter you carry but don't use. It belonged to a friend. That's all you can say for a long time. Trucks backfiring send you flat against a wall before you've registered deciding to move. Rain on a tin roof turns, for one disorienting second, into monsoon season on a fire-based perimeter. Carol learns, slowly, and without being told, which questions not to ask, and which silences to just sit inside with you. You buy her the ring within the month. It sits in a drawer for almost a year before you finally give it to her. Not because you've stopped loving her, but because some part of you doesn't believe yet that you're allowed a future that ordinary. One evening on the back porch, She finds you turning the Zippo over in your hands. She asks about the dent. You tell her about Danny and Alvarez and the ridge. Not everything, never everything, but enough. She doesn't tell you to move past it. She closes your fingers around the lighter and says, "Then don't let him disappear, just don't do it alone either." You marry that spring. Years pass. You finish your degree on the GI Bill, take a job, raise 2 kids who grow up thinking of Vietnam as a chapter in a textbook, and a wall of names in Washington they've seen in photographs but never visited in person. They know there was a war, that it was different from their grandfather's war, more complicated, more argued over. They don't know about the trail, the ridge, the Hamlet, the sound Danny's voice made when he asked you to promise about the ring. At 50, you finally visit the memorial with Carol. You find Alvarez's name first, then Danny's, tracing the letters the way you've heard other veterans describe doing, though nobody ever really explains why it helps. It does anyway. You take the Zippo from your pocket and set it, just for a moment, against the black stone beneath his name, not leaving it, just letting it rest there. Then you close your hand around it again, put it back in your pocket, and take Carol's hand. The names on the wall don't move. But for the first time in 20 years, walking away from them doesn't feel like leaving anyone behind.